ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity to talk to Brandon Pritzl. He is, he's the new general manager for men's hoops. He's one of the rising young leaders in college basketball. And he's helping shape the future. Okay, what the hell happened to the song? Yeah, let that baby roar.
2 minutes long.
Let's let it go, baby. The interview is going to go more than 2 minutes.
All right.
Anyway, he's shaping the future of Toledo hoops, both on the court and behind the scenes, in the rapid changing, pain in the ass, and the NIL, revenue sharing, and the transfer portal. Please welcome to Denny Radio Sports and More, on the road, Brandon Pritzl. And you can see him right now on our Facebook page. Hello, Brandon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, you're in a car right now, and it looks like you're not driving, which is a good thing. Where are you going, and what are you doing?
This weekend is one of the first. Well, it's the second live June period where we can be out recruiting as Division I coaches, and so the Ohio Basketball Association, the Coaches Association, they have a huge event in Sandusky with a ton of teams. So we're in a race to get there by noon right now so we can make sure we make the first game.
Okay, so you're going to be watching potential future Rockets. Are these seniors?
It's going to be a high school team. So primarily watching seniors, but obviously you got to keep tabs on kids who are juniors, and even down the road, if there's a sophomore or anyone who's kind of catches your eye, you got to kind of keep their name handy.
So these are, I'm assuming it's all Northwest Ohio kids, or all state of Ohio people coming to this big tournament?
It's the whole state. So we'll see some teams from Cincinnati, from Columbus. There's some Cleveland teams kind of throughout the whole state. So it'll be a good little weekend, I should say.
Brandon, are we looking at some bombers, some 3-point shooting that the Rockets could probably use a little of?
I think that's the biggest thing right now. We want to find guys who can shoot it. My personal preference, I want guys who can guard too. I love, that was kind of my MO, my personality. But shooting is really the biggest thing. I think you've seen a lot of teams who were successful this year in the regular season and the tournament. That's like the number one skill that can get players on the floor.
So are there specific kids you're like, where Coach K is like, okay, I want you to, get something on this kid, talk to this kid? I mean, are there certain players that you're going to attempt to connect with and start a relationship today?
Yeah, a lot of these kids, the whole staff, we kind of met. We actually met this morning before we hit the road again, just to kind of who's going to what courts at what times, who's seeing, some of the kids, myself, I've talked to, Coach Rao has talked to, Coach Mass, Justin. We've all kind of talked to these different kids, so we know who we're going to see. And it's just kind of, who do you like more than another, who played well, who didn't play well, and just kind of try to narrow that list down from the huge list it is, and try to pick the, maybe the top 10, top 15 that we really are trying to go after.
Brandon Pritzl just promoted to general manager, and he's been coaching at University of Toledo men's hoops. Is Coach K, is he part of your caravan going over there?
He's in his truck with Coach Mass. Only four can be out on one day. Yeah, so they're a little ways ahead of us.
What is that?
Yeah.
Only four?
Yeah.
Is it because of a space thing? Like not enough people can get to the gym? Because that's bogus, dude.
No, I think it stems from the old rule, like the bigger schools who could fund more coaches. They would basically have an unfair advantage if they had 7 people on staff and you could send 7 people out. It's in Philadelphia this weekend. Georgia's got a big one. Wisconsin has one. There's one in Kentucky. So if you had 7 people, you can kind of spread out all over the country. And I think some people over the years kind of said that's an unfair advantage. And so the number's 4 any one day.
All right. Is there a kid that you're going to see play today that if he committed to Toledo, you'd sign him today?
100%.
Who
100%.
is it?
I cannot comment. I cannot
What the
comment who that
hell?
is.
Why are you on the
That
show then,
I feel like
Brandon?
it breaks the rules.
that
He said,
that would be a violation. That would be a
"Hey, we don't
violation.
want
But
that live."
yeah, that would be a violation.
You don't
But
know our
there,
motto. You don't know our motto on this show. We have the best show that no one ever hears. So it's like if you tell me right now, it's like a secret. All right. So if this kid that you're not going to tell us, if he were to come up to you, or you guys, I don't know if you're allowed to go have lunch or dinner or whatever these guys, but if he says, "Yeah, I'll sign," do you have a fistful of cash to feed him?
Well, actually, during these live periods, you're not supposed to have any contact with the players or even their families.
Oh, no kidding.
You just go watch.
What about
Yeah,
hookers?
like
They have
yeah,
rules
they're
about if you send hookers over to their house?
you cannot facilitate any of those things either.
Okay.
Dang
But
it.
That's what those kids
yeah.
want, though.
That's Denny's strategy.
Hookers
Yeah.
beer.
I mean,
that signed a lot of kids. Anyway.
Yeah, it'll be I mean, in this day and age, now you have to have some financial negotiations and conversations while you are recruiting somebody. I think that's one of the big changes, and so I think kids are aware of what they're, used to be, hey, you're gonna have a scholarship offer, and that was what it was. Now, uh, almost part of the process, you have to say, hey, here's what your rev share agreement, this is what you're going to be at right now. Obviously that could increase, but those conversations have been had in the recruiting process. But I will not be handing anybody a handful of cash this weekend.
All right, that's good.
Good.
I don't want you to break any rules. All right, so you're a young guy. You're 34. All right, you're married. Shout out to Michelle. You got young kids, Lucy, Olivia, and Violet. You're 34.
And one more coming.
Wow.
You are a horn dog.
Machine.
Look at you go. We know what you're doing in your spare time.
Yeah.
No, my question is, dude, I mean, being an assistant coach at Toledo is crazy time consuming. You're doing the interview in the car on the way to an event. Now you're the GM. That is a whole nother layer of, I don't know, stress but challenge also. That's got to be exciting. Why at this stage of your life is this so appealing to you to do both, coach and be the GM and deal with the NIL revenue share, parents, uncles, agents? Why now, Brandon?
Yeah, I think I love coaching. Those, the 2 hours that you're on the floor for practice, and those 30 minutes where you're in the gym with a guy getting shots up. I love that aspect. But I'm a little bit of a nerd too, I would say. I like the number side of things. And so it's kind of just something that, while we've been doing some recruiting, and while we've been focusing on retention in our current roster, kind of took a liking to it, and kind of found a way to help organize our conversations, put it basically down on a piece of paper. And coach is very visual. He wants to like see it and actually have something tangible to look at. And I've found a way to sort of, in our conversations amongst our staff, here's a simple one pager, just to kind of essentially balance the books, so to speak. And here's what we're looking at for our roster makeup and positions, and what are the budgets and those sorts of things. And I think it's just one of those things. I like to do it. I enjoy to do it, and the more experience you can have, I'd love to be a head coach someday. And if you are a head coach, you are making these decisions, and so it's I look at it as, one, I think it's a way that I can help us be successful now, and hopefully over the next however many years. But at the same time, long term, it's a good experience to have for my development, as a coach.
Besides what you're doing today, checking out future recruits, what is your day-to-day as the general manager of the Toledo Rockets men's basketball team?
I've always put it this way. I have a list. I have a to-do list sitting on my desk of kind of just, things I have to do the next day or for that week, there are probably 3 days a week where I'm not going to touch that list because something is going to come up. Right now it's fairly slow, but for example, all of our guys moved in on Saturday and Sunday this past week, and so part of my job, I think when everyone thinks of general manager, they just think they're making contracts, picking signing numbers and what guys are going to be paid. But now that guy gets on campus, he needs to get into his house. He needs to make sure that his lease is signed for his apartment. You need to make sure he's got a parking pass. I got to set them up with the system that we use to pay them, and like their direct deposits, all of that stuff. And so my Saturday and Sunday was sitting at the computer for 45 minutes with each guy, kind of going through that checklist to make sure that when Monday hit, everything was smooth. And on top of that, we had our kids camp this week, which Brett and I kind of take charge with our kids camp. So we had 116 third through eighth graders this week running around our facility, playing games and eating candy and spilling water bottles everywhere. But
That's
that's
awesome.
that's also part of the job.
Yeah, you're a dad. You know what that's like. All right.
Exactly.
So have you, and maybe you've already done this, maybe you've been doing it, and that's why Coach K said, you're the guy to be the GM. Have you taken a recruit and walked them through the NIL process and everything from start to the roster to get him on the team? Okay,
Yep.
so you know what that world's like. So what's a bigger pain in the ass? Dealing with families that think their kid is the greatest thing since LeBron James, or dealing with agents who really just want their palms greased? What's more challenging?
Agents. And
Okay.
I can answer that. I can answer that very
All
quickly.
right, give me an example of like, are you kidding me, dude? Like an agent asked for something.
For example, I think last year we were recruiting a young man, and we thought we were in a really, really good place with him and thought he was going to commit. And the day he was supposed to call to commit, agent called again and said, "Hey, do you have any more money?" And
Wow, that's subtle.
and it was kind of one of those things where, well, now we're having conversations as a staff going, well, we probably could, but do we want to? Does that send a bad look if we don't give him more money? Does that mean we don't want him? So it became this him and Han, and to make a long story short, we ended up just kind of saying, we're comfortable with where we are. We're trying to build a team, not just sign one player. And that kid ended up not committing to us. But I talked to that agent at the Final Four this year, and this is where it all gets funny because the agent's trying to, he's trying to up the price, so his cut is a little bit higher. And at the Final Four, he said, "Gosh, they made a bad decision."
Yeah.
The family admitted they made a bad decision, and it was like, well, yeah, and it was over a small amount of money.
I know a sports agent, and not everyone is, a carnivorous, smarmy, what you see on TV. A lot of these guys are really in it for the right reasons, at least the agent that I know. Do the players know how much each player is getting in NIL and revenue share? And does that create a problem on the team?
I think initially they do not. And then as kind of the year goes on, I think you'd be dumb to not assume that they don't talk about it, or kind of see what's kind of happening amongst them. It hasn't necessarily caused an issue yet for us, knock on wood, but I think as this becomes more normal, kids will understand that they're at different spots in their career. And I think that's part of the growing up factor, that we preach a little bit. Like, I would be foolish to assume that I'm going to make the same amount of money as Coach Kowalczyk. I mean,
What?
I would be a fool to assume that, right? But
Right.
I think players are getting to that point, but I think there is some jealousy at some points throughout the season.
Yeah, that's got to be something else that you and Coach K and the entire staff's got to deal with, because when one kid drives up in a friggin' brand new Escalade,
A
you know,
G-Wagon.
to practice, and they're like, oh, okay, that guy's getting paid.
Yeah.
Is it and forgive me for being naive. I'm not very good at my job. Is it public knowledge, because Toledo's a public university, of what the basketball players are making, the football players, the women's, sports, or is that something that's completely out of view?
If legislation would ever happen where they become full employees, which I think there's a couple coaches out there who would like that. There's some who don't. If they become full employees, it would be. But right now, because they're on a 1099, it's not actually
Okay.
public information.
They're independent contractors.
Yes,
they are.
which now you take, you asked about the GM job. Part of what I have to do now is, these guys see the amount of money they're getting, and now I got to go and tell them, hey, you owe taxes on that money.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't like that part.
They do not like that part. And
quarterly payments, boys. Quarterly payments. It's not at the end of the year. You got to do it every quarter.
Yes. And I had a conversation. It really depends on the state you're in too, which kind of makes guys go, like, what do you mean? Because, if you're from, I think Illinois is one of the states. I think Indiana is another state. They don't allow you, if you make your income in Ohio, they're going to say, great, thanks for paying your taxes in Ohio, but you still owe us our cut. So
yeah, that's bogus, man. That's bogus. All right, we have a Facebook question for you. One of our listeners,
David Truman, wanted to ask this, and I thought it was a good question. It's is this, having a GM for the basketball program, is this a luxury move by the university or something that's becoming a necessity?
I think it right now. I just read an article from an NBA GM. He was with the Bucks. He was with the Pacers and the Jazz. I think teams are trying to get ahead of it, and kind of the position is like being built out internally as time goes on. I think eventually this is going to get to a point where this is like, that is a full-time, you have no coaching responsibilities at some universities.
Yeah.
Because ideally you want to get to the point as a program where what your roster is going to look like in 2 years or 3 years. Now we're not talking about, previously with NIL, it was like, here's what you're getting for 1 year. We'll talk again in the spring. You want to get to a point where with these conversations with the GM, how to structure a transfer that you want to keep for 2 years, or is it a transfer you're going to have for 1 year? Or as a high school kid, how do you tell that high school kid that in 3 years, this is what his salary is going to be, So I think that it's actively turning into a full-time, that will be the position. But right now it's kind of transitioning to, like, right now it's probably, I would say, probably more luxury, but as it develops, as this NIL thing, kind of the rules, if there are any, kind of get pinned down, it turns into this is your full-time job.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Since you've got more responsibility and another title, did it come with a big fat raise?
It was okay. Yeah, it was good. It was
okay. Good. I'm just trying to take care of you. It's like, okay, you still got the coaching responsibilities. Then you got to deal with the headache of all the other crap. So that's good to hear. Okay, I lied. I got one more question. As a Rocket fan, and there's a lot out there that are listening right now, look in your crystal ball. You know things that we don't know. How competitive are the Rockets going to be this year? Should we be excited for men's hoops this year?
I am. Let me speak for myself first here. I am, by nature, I try not to get ahead of everything, but we have had a couple open gyms and watched kind of the guys play. We've worked them out. I think we are very talented. I think people will like this team a lot. I think we have a chance to be really, really good.
Up, and we lost him.
Hey, you know what? We made it through.
We did. That was pretty good.
Solid chunk of that.
He was driving to Sandusky, and he's like, "Hey, our internet's a little spotty."
You get out there, and it starts getting real spotty.
Well, yeah, it's out there in Sandusky.
Oh, there he is.
So yeah, I was getting a phone call, getting a facilities guy calling me to get some keys. No way. I think we'll be really good. I think we will be really good. We'll have a chance to be really good. People got to, if they buy into what we want to do, we guard a little bit. I think we'll shoot it better. And we have a chance. I'm usually
I look forward to it.
hesitant.
I'm a big basketball fan. I go to a lot of games just to harass Mark Beyer, the voice of the Rockets.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for going on. And I should have asked you before we were on. Am I saying your last name right? Pritzl?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I've been called Pretzel my whole life. So
yeah, that's why I didn't offend you with that, because if I couldn't come up with something creative, I'm not going to go where everybody else goes. But I'm assuming you're a big, because you grew up outside of Green Bay. You're a big Packer fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hope you win every game unless you play Detroit.
Yeah. Well, our office is great because we have a Packers fan, we have a Lions fan, and we have a Bears fan. The now Indiana Bears. So
awesome.
we have some great Sundays arguing about our teams.
I bet you do. All right, Brandon Pritzl. He is the brand new general manager, still the assistant coach for Toledo Rockets men's hoops. Appreciate you going on. Thank you. Great interview. Drive safe, and let's get some recruits.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
There you go.
Thank you, Brandon.
That's pretty good.
Dude, he was awesome.
That's the first interview we had of somebody actually mobile. He was driving. That was kind of cool.
Future.